The next speaker is Michael Prysner, Iraq War veteran and co-founder of the active duty military and veterans organization March Forward. Michael is a contributing writer for Liberation newspaper and michaelmoore.com. He's also a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Please welcome Mike Prysner.
Thank you, comrades, friends, future comrades. We know many of us have come into this room for different reasons. Some of us have lost our jobs. Some have watched their parents and loved ones die in hospitals because the care was too expensive. Some have gone into debt trying to get an education. Some have had their home countries devastated by U.S. economic policies. And we know that this list can go on. But for me, it was a war. It was believing in this system so much that I joined the army with all the illusions of fighting for freedom and democracy and willing to give my life to those ideas. But I'm here to tell you today that I went from being a soldier and a patriot to a soldier and a revolutionary. And that's a socialist and a revolutionary. And I had always believed what I was taught growing up in the United States, like they try to teach each one of us. From a lifetime of indoctrination, we're taught to believe that the United States is a beacon of equality and democratic principles, a force for progress and human rights. But I was taught something very different by the Iraqi people. When I went to war, they became my teachers. Instead of being taught about the American dream, I was taught about the reality of American foreign policy. My teachers were a young boy with scars from U.S. bombs that mangled his face beyond recognition, that melted his eyes shut, that severed his arm. His mother, who begged for compensation because they are too poor to eat. My teachers were an 8-year-old girl who looked exactly like my sister, who was dragged from her home in tears, who screamed hysterically as she watched her brothers taken away with sandbags over their heads. My teachers were a man, my father's age, shot through the neck, bleeding through bandages, shaking, sobbing and saying that he just wanted to go home and see his family. They taught me that there was no way in hell that this was a war of liberation. This was something else. And I learned from their suffering, and I learned from their strength, and I started thinking that the Iraqi people weren't much different than my family and my friends and my neighbors and my coworkers. And then I realized that they were no different than my family and my friends and my neighbors. And I realized that I should be on their side, not the side of the invader and the oppressor and the occupier. And I came home with feelings of guilt and betrayal, and I had to know why. Why I was fighting for liberation and instead robbed them of their independence. Why I was told I was fighting to defend the United States from an imminent attack from weapons of mass destruction when every shred of evidence was exposed as a willful and blatant lie. And the reality is that these wars are for profit. There is no question a mountain of human suffering for the enrichment of a tiny few corporate owners and bankers. And why did this happen? Was it George Bush? Well, I think we've seen that regardless of which of the two capitalist parties are in power, that a warfare state is a constant feature. And why is that? Sisters and brothers, the United States is an imperialist country. It is an empire. It must wage war to survive, to constantly accumulate wealth. The Roman Empire could plunder and pillage openly, but the U.S. empire cannot be so open, because in this era, nobody would accept it. So they changed the language and say that we're fighting for democracy and human rights. Well, we don't believe that, do we? And we don't believe that these wars are for our safety because they don't care about us at all. This government has lost all credibility telling us who our enemies are. Do they really expect us to think that it's just a coincidence that every country that they tell us we must fight the one thing they have in common is they've not opened their borders to be plundered by U.S. corporations. Well, we know that's not just a coincidence. No Iraqi, no Afghan ever hurt my family or my community, never destroyed a school or shut down a factory. No one from Iran or Cuba or Venezuela or North Korea was ever responsible for millions of people in the U.S. losing their homes, for 1 million school children a year being homeless, for millions dying of preventable diseases. Sisters and brothers, our enemies are not in the poorest countries on earth, but right here in the richest one, not in the caves in Afghanistan, but in the offices of Wall Street and the Pentagon. Right now, as we're sitting here in Detroit, in Florida, in California, all over the country, where record numbers of families are being kicked out of their homes, houses are being destroyed, they're being bulldozed because they can't be sold as a profit. Entire apartment buildings sitting empty and rotting. If bombs went off all over the country and destroyed all those homes, leaving families with nowhere to go, this government would be vowing revenge on those responsible. But when Bank of America does it, we're supposed to accept it as the way things have to be. And what have workers in the U.S. gained from these wars? We've just been told to take more cuts, to lose child care, to lose more funding for our schools, to take more cuts to social services, to take more job losses, while the military budget just increases, while hundreds of billions of dollars of our dollars flow into defense contractors' pockets and the oil giants they defend, the wealth we produce used to buy multi-million-dollar armored vehicles to be filled with our loved ones, then blown up in some distant land. And why is it the rich who die, or the rich who live, while it's we that die? Why is it the families of the poor, the struggling, that have to mourn, who watch their loved ones come home in coffins and in wheelchairs? It's never the children of the politicians, the CEOs, the billionaires. It's our children. It's our friends. It's our siblings. That's why we say that this is not our war, because it's not our war. It's their war, for their profits, for their interests. And you know what, sisters and brothers? If it's not our war, then we're not going to support their war, and we're not going to fight their war. Instead, we're going to fight against their war, and we're going to fight against the system that makes their wars inevitable, because that's what we must do. Sisters and brothers, I came home angry, and I wanted to fight, so I joined the most dedicated fighting organization in the United States. I joined the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and that's who made me the fighter I am today. Sisters and brothers, the first step for all of us is understanding the truth that we live in a class society where one class of fat cats live in luxury of the blood and the sweat of our class who create all of the wealth. But the most important thing isn't simply understanding that truth, but knowing what to do about it, because there's much more of us than there are of them. And my experience isn't unique. I'm nobody special. We all suffer under this system, and that's why we're all here. And we can all undergo the same transformation that I went through. That transformation where you see and experience the injustice and the suffering. You get angry and you want to do something. Then you meet other people who feel the same way. Then you organize together and fight together and struggle together. And then you win victories together. And then you're not just people who agree with each other anymore. That's when you're comrades. And then all that anger and passion becomes something greater. It becomes a real political force. That's how we end these wars, the suffering, the injustice, the inequality. That's how we smash this rotten system, put those criminals at the top in the dustbin of history, and that's how we build a better world. Thank you, sisters and brothers.